Welcome to the Personality Laboratory, where today we are talking about the 16 personalities and intelligence. So Myers-Briggs has 16 personality types, as we know, 16 categories of people, but which one is the smartest? Yes, we really need to go there. Are any of the 16 types smarter than the other types? What does it even mean to be a smarter type? So like, are introverts smarter than extroverts? Are intuitives smarter than sensors? Or what about thinking types? Are they smarter than the feeling types? Before we continue, if you drink liquids and you want to support the channel, you can get some Frank James exclusive mugs. The link is down below. One of them has my face on it. That's kind of cool. At first glance, especially that last one, seems like we should have a clear answer right away, right? Well, I, Professor FJ, am here to tell you that it is not as clear an answer as you might think, and there's a lot of nuance that goes into a question as big as which type is the smartest? Or if you're from Boston, which type is wicked smart? The first thing we really have to ask ourselves is, what does it mean to be smart? Boom, ask the question. Are we talking about the ability to solve galaxy brain math problems? To speak 5 languages fluently? Parlez-vous français? To make hilarious jokes like I do all the time? Or to understand and empathize with others? So there's a bunch of different ways we can interpret the question. What most people think of though when we refer to something like being the smartest is raw intelligence, which is typically measured with a metric called intelligence quotient, or IQ, which you might have heard of. IQ is a number ranging from 0 to roughly 160 that says how smart you are compared to the average person. Check out this visual that I can't see, but hopefully you'll be able to see once this video is edited. A person with an IQ of 85 to 115 is considered average or normal, a normie, if you will. Anyone under 85 is below average, and anyone above 115 is above average, like me. Quick tip, anyone who ever tells you they have a high IQ score objectively does not have a high IQ score. You might be thinking to yourself, well, if we have a metric for how smart people are, all we need to do is get a bunch of people to take an IQ test as well as a personality test, and then we'll have the answer. Duh. And in theory, you would be right. But sadly, like most things, it's not that easy, player. Speaking of IQ, whenever you write on a whiteboard, your IQ goes down like 10 points. The first issue is that it's really hard to know your personality type on your first assessment. A lot of you watching can relate to this. You take one test, it tells you one thing, you take another test, it tells another thing, you're like, I'm not sure that any of these are right. Especially when people take a test to type themselves, they don't always see themselves clearly and the tests can be flawed. If you're interested in learning more about this subject, watch this video here about what you can do when personality tests give you mixed results here in the card above my head. Another issue is what I'm going to call intellectual bias. A lot of you out there might be saying to yourselves, thinking types are smarter than feeling types, and some studies might even seem to support that. But what tends to be really going on is that thinking types prefer to study logical systems, learn new things, and solve problems for fun or work. So this means that thinking types get far more exposure to the types of problems that an IQ test might be measuring. Think of it like this: would Mozart be able to solve calculations like Einstein? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know the guy. Mozart was known for being a musical genius though, so he likely didn't spend most of his days solving complex math problems or studying theories of astronomy and physics and so on and so forth. Fun fact, many people hypothesize that Mozart was an ESFP, not a type that typically comes to mind when we're thinking of a competition for the smartest type. But what this really says to me is that being smart and being a genius, like being smart in this IQ kind of way where it's about math and logic and stuff, is different things. Let's go back to the idea of IQ and type though. Has any research been done at Don't you love it when teachers are like, so passionate about what they're writing on the board? Has any research been done on the relationship between IQ and type? Actually, yes. One study from 1996 found that the only category that showed any real difference in IQ scores was, guess, you think it's going to be thinking, feeling? You think it's going to be introvert, extrovert? No, actually, they found that the only differentiating factor was intuitive or sensing type. Uh-oh. Frank, are you really just gonna feed into this stereotype now? But then a study from 2005 re-examined this same topic while referencing the first study, and they found basically the same thing. So the study says this indicates that individuals higher on intelligence tend to go beyond the information provided by their senses to discover the possibilities which may not be directly obvious from sensory data. In other words, intuition. There is a big bias here though, because if you know what a real IQ test is like, you know that there are whole sections dedicated to abstract thinking, which is how intuitives prefer to work with information. So does this mean that intuitives are smarter by nature? No. More likely it just means that they have a leg up on a few portions of the IQ tests. Intelligence can also be broken up into categories. So you have an overall IQ score. This is called the full scale score, but there are 4 subcategories in which you can get individual scores, and each of these subcategories has multiple tests within them. So stay with me here. If intuitives naturally have a leg up on a part of the test called abstract similarities or pattern recognition, it wouldn't be too crazy to assume that maybe sensing types have a leg up on the subtests of symbol searching or visual puzzles that involve the ability to deal with and process sensory information quickly. So while there may be some correlation between IQ and MBTI types, ultimately correlation isn't causation. You could have an ESFJ with a 160 IQ. Sure, it may not be the stereotype of an ESFJ, but it is certainly possible. Though in this circumstance, I just totally made it up. This is a fictional ESFJ. The opposite certainly applies as well. If you read through the studies I mentioned earlier, as I'm sure you all will, you would see that the 2 INT types are the most likely to score the highest in IQ tests. Now that doesn't mean that every INTJ and INTP you meet is going to be Einstein and doing calculus for fun though. It just means that if you look at these types across the board at scale, many more INT types are going to be interested in the scientists. That's right, they will be more interested in The Scientist by Coldplay, the hit song The Scientist. No, they are going to be more interested in the sciences, spending a lot of time doing mentally challenging tasks. That sounds a little weird when I say it. And enjoy things related to logic, as compared to like the ESF types, for example. If we put things on a spectrum, the INT types are definitely going to be much more interested in those things at scale. In these cases, even if an INT type doesn't have a high IQ, you might think they do because they spend a lot of their time doing traditionally thinker-focused things in their lives. The odds are at some point in your life you've met an INTP or an INTJ who doesn't do any of these stereotypical things. Look at Arnold Schwarzenegger for an example. Many people type the muscle man Mr. Universe as an INTJ, and he is not involved in traditionally intellectual topics, unless shouting "get to the chopper" counts as intellectual to you. Either that or it's not a tumor. Instead of thinking about types through the lens of raw intelligence, try to think about them in terms of what type of intelligence every type can bring to the table. So NTs may be known for their scientific interest and intellectual drive, but you don't hear them talking about taking care of other people or making the world a more fun place through things like music and dance, which is stereotypically more what the SFs do. STs are often known for their hands-on intelligence, being able to get their hands dirty and get stuff to work, as well as their adaptability, but you don't often hear about them being dreamers, poets, or advocates for the people the way that NF types are. Play to your strengths and do what you enjoy. If you happen to be an ESFP and you want to work in computer science because you love coding, then don't let your silly type stop you because you think you aren't smart enough. So, who is The smartest type. Come on, Frank, that's why we clicked on this video, gosh darn it. It's probably the INTPs and ISTPs. But seriously, guys, what are the pet peeves of the 16 personalities? Check that out right here. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay cool and attractive.